Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mighty Habits. I'm Steven, and today we're taking a deep dive into a fascinating perspective on time management and really how to build a more meaningful life.
Sounds intriguing.
It is.
Yeah.
You know me, I always try to bring the most thought-provoking ideas to our listener.
You certainly do. I'm Mary, by the way, ready to break down these complex ideas and, well, help connect the dots.
Exactly. Always happy to have you here, Mary. So the book we're exploring today is 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. Even the title itself, it kind of makes you pause, doesn't it? 4,000 weeks.
It does. It definitely grabs your attention. 4,000 weeks, that's like the average human lifespan. It really puts things into perspective, like, whoa, our time is limited.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. The core idea of the book is that we have 4,000 weeks. I'm guessing this isn't your typical, hustle harder, optimize your schedule kind of advice.
Yeah. You're spot on. 4,000 weeks takes a totally different approach. It challenges like all those conventional productivity tips that often, let's be honest, leave us feeling overwhelmed and like we're still not achieving what we actually want.
So it's not about like squeezing more into our already jam-packed schedules.
Not at all. It's more about, well, shifting our mindset, embracing this idea of strategic underachievement.
Hold on, strategic underachievement. That sounds almost like, giving up.
I know, right? It sounds counterintuitive, especially in a culture that's always pushing us to do more, be more, achieve more. But trust me, there's more to it.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's so strategic about underachieving?
Well, think about it. We can't do everything, right? We have limited time and energy. 4,000 weeks. It encourages us to be intentional about what we choose to really focus on and just as importantly, what we decide to let go of.
So it's about saying no to certain things so we can really excel in the areas that, well, truly align with our values and passions.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices, about how we spend our precious time rather than just reacting to every single demand that comes our way.
I gotta say, this is already making me rethink my to-do list,
Oh.
which is, by the way, a mile long.
Oh, I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of being overwhelmed by never-ending to-do lists. One of the interesting things 4,000 Weeks points out is that this whole pursuit of perfect work-life balance, it can actually be part of the problem.
Really? Isn't work-life balance like the holy grail we're all supposed to be striving for?
It's what we're often told, yeah. But the book argues that this idea of perfect balance, it's often a myth. Like it sets us up for failure because we can never truly achieve it.
I see what you mean. I'm always feeling like I'm neglecting either work or my personal life. It's like there's always something that's getting the short end of the stick.
Right. Exactly. And that creates so much unnecessary stress and guilt. So instead of like striving for this unattainable balance, 4,000 weeks, suggests we focus on creating a life that feels whole and integrated, where work and personal life aren't these separate entities that need to be perfectly balanced.
So it's not about drawing this hard line between work and life, but about finding a way to, I don't know, weave those different aspects together in a way that feels authentic and fulfilling.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. It's about acknowledging that our lives are messy and unpredictable, and that's okay.
That's a really refreshing perspective. I think a lot of us get caught up in trying to like compartmentalize everything that we lose sight of the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And 4,000 Weeks, it reminds us that life isn't just a series of these neatly categorized boxes. It's a dynamic, ever-evolving journey.
This is making me think about all the times I've tried to force myself into these routines and systems that just didn't feel right. Like, remember when everyone was doing the 5 a.m. club?
The 5 a.m. club? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it would, unlock some superhuman level of productivity.
So, did it work for you?
Let's just say I'm way more productive after a good night's sleep. But that whole experience, it really made me realize how much pressure we put on ourselves to conform to these external standards of productivity, even when they don't align with, our natural rhythms and preferences.
That's such a great point. And that's what 4,000 Weeks really encourages us to do, to question these assumptions about what it means to be productive.
So instead of blindly following the latest productivity hacks, we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, what actually works for me? What brings me energy and joy?
Exactly. It's all about tuning into our own internal compass and defining success on our own terms rather than letting these external forces dictate our priorities. It's funny, isn't it, how we've come to associate like productivity with busyness. It's like if we're not constantly doing, then we're somehow falling behind.
It's so true. It's almost like a badge of honor to say, oh, I'm so busy, or I haven't had a moment to breathe. But I'm starting to think that maybe that's not something to be, proud of.
I totally agree. 4,000 Weeks really pushes back against this whole, cult of busyness. It encourages us to slow down, be more intentional with our time and energy.
So if we're not supposed to be striving for this mythical work-life balance, and we're not supposed to be constantly busy, then what are we supposed to be doing with our 4,000 weeks?
The book suggests that instead of focusing on doing more, we should focus on doing what matters, aligning our actions with our values and priorities.
That sounds great in theory, but how do we actually put that into practice? It's easy to say focus on what matters, but in reality, life is full of distractions and competing demands.
You're absolutely right. It's not easy. But one of the key strategies that 4,000 Weeks highlights is this idea of attention management.
Attention management, I've heard of time management, but attention management, that's a new one.
It's a really powerful concept. The book argues that where our attention goes, our energy flows. So if we want to be more productive and fulfilled, we need to learn how to manage our attention more effectively.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like I can have all the time in the world, but if I'm constantly distracted by, emails and social media notifications, then I'm not going to get anything meaningful done.
Exactly. And one of the biggest challenges we face, especially today, is the sheer volume of distractions, right? We're bombarded with them constantly. It's like we're fighting for our own attention.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I feel like my phone is this black hole that sucks up all my time and energy. And, the worst part is I often feel like I have zero control over it.
A lot of people can relate to that feeling of being overwhelmed by technology. 4,000 Weeks offers some practical strategies for kind of reclaiming our attention and using it more intentionally.
Like what? Give me some tips, because I'm definitely open to anything that can help me break free from this tyranny of my phone.
Well, one of the simplest but most effective things is to create more attention-rich environments for yourself. Like setting up a designated workspace where you only go to work, or even putting your phone in another room while you're focusing on a task.
Those are good ideas. I know that when my phone is within reach, it's almost impossible to resist the temptation to check it.
It's like a siren song, right? The book also talks about being mindful of what it calls attention residue.
Attention residue, what's that?
It's that lingering feeling of distraction we often have after switching between tasks. If you're working on a report and then you check your email for a few minutes, it can take a while to fully refocus on the report, right?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's like my brain needs to reboot every time I get pulled away from what I'm doing.
Exactly. So 4,000 Weeks suggests that we try to minimize those task switches as much as possible. Instead, focus on one thing at a time.
That sounds like a good idea, but also kind of challenging in a world where multitasking is often seen as this, virtue.
It is a challenge, but it's worth striving for. The book argues that when we focus on one thing at a time, we're actually more productive and creative.
That makes sense. I know when I'm trying to juggle too many things at once, I end up doing a mediocre job at all of them.
It's like spreading ourselves too thin. And 4,000 Weeks also reminds us that our time, it's a finite resource. We need to be intentional about how we kind of invest it.
It's like that saying, time is money. But instead of money, it's our attention and energy that we're investing.
That's a great analogy. And just like with any investment, we want to make sure we're getting a good return on our investment, right? So instead of investing our attention in things that drain us or distract us from our goals, we should focus on activities that energize us and align with our values.
Which is where that idea of strategic underachievement comes in, right?
Yeah.
By choosing to say no to certain things, we're freeing up our time and energy to invest in what truly matters.
Exactly. It's about being selective and focusing our efforts on the things that will have the biggest impact.
This is all starting to make so much sense. It's like 4,000 Weeks is giving us permission to let go of the pressure to do it all and instead focus on doing what matters most.
Yes, exactly. And that's such an important message, especially today in our fast-paced world.
We've talked a lot about managing our attention and choosing our limits, but I'm curious, what are some other practical strategies that 4,000 Weeks offers for creating a more meaningful life?
One thing it really emphasizes is the importance of paying yourself first.
Now, I've heard that phrase before, but usually refers to saving money. So how does it apply to time management?
Well, in this context, paying yourself first means investing in the things that nourish your soul, bring you joy, like spending time with loved ones, pursuing a hobby, or simply taking some time for yourself to relax and recharge.
So it's about prioritizing those things that make us feel alive and connected,
Yeah.
even if they don't necessarily contribute to our productivity, at least not in the traditional sense.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that those activities are just as important, if not more so, than checking things off our to-do lists.
I love that. It's like a reminder that we're not just human doings, we're human beings. And sometimes the most productive thing we can do is just, be present and enjoy the moment.
That's beautifully said. And 4,000 weeks really drives that point home. Life isn't just about achieving goals or ticking boxes. It's about experiencing the richness and beauty of each moment as it unfolds.
This whole conversation is really challenging me to rethink, my definition of success. It's not just about those external achievements, but also about cultivating a sense of inner peace and fulfillment.
Absolutely. And that's such an important distinction. And 4,000 Weeks offers this powerful framework for creating a life that is both successful and fulfilling.
I'm really glad we decided to do this deep dive. It's been so insightful and thought-provoking.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you. And I hope that our listeners are feeling inspired to embrace their own 4,000 weeks, with intention and purpose.
Totally agree. This is a book I think everyone can benefit from no matter what stage of life they're in. It's interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about time as if it's something we can control, like I need to manage my time better or I wish I had more time. But this book, 4,000 Weeks, it really highlights how much of an illusion that control over time is.
You're right. It's like we create these schedules, we set deadlines, but ultimately time, it just keeps marching on, regardless of like our best efforts to wrangle it.
And that's where I think that idea of embracing our finitude comes in. Instead of always fighting the clock, we can, choose to accept the limits of our time, just focus on making the most of the time that we have.
Yeah, totally. It's a shift, like from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Instead of feeling like we're always running out of time, we can, you know, appreciate each moment like, wow, this moment is precious.
That reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about paying yourself first. Can you unpack that a bit more?
Yeah, for sure. 4,000 Weeks suggests that we should treat our time like this valuable resource, something to invest wisely, and one of the best investments, ourselves.
So it's not selfish to put our own well-being and happiness first.
Not at all. Actually, the book argues that it's essential, you
Right.
know? When we take care of ourselves both physically and mentally, we're more equipped to show up for others and make a positive impact.
Makes sense to me. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. If we're constantly running on fumes, we're not going to be able to do our best, for anyone or anything.
Exactly. And 4,000 Weeks, it really encourages us to think about the things that truly nourish us and make us feel alive, whether that's spending time in nature, connecting with loved ones, creating art, or even just like taking a break, you know? Relax and recharge.
It's about creating space for those things that bring us joy and meaning, even if they don't fit into our, I don't know, traditional idea of productivity.
Right. It's like redefining productivity and success. It's not just about checking things off a list or achieving external goals, but it's also about, cultivating that sense of inner peace and fulfillment.
And I think that's where that idea of strategic underachievement
Hmm.
comes full circle. By choosing to, I don't know, release the pressure to do it all, we're actually opening up space for what truly matters to us.
For sure. It's about focusing on what we can control, our choices, our actions, and letting go of the things we can't, like the passage of time.
This has been a truly eye-opening conversation. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new perspective on time management and really on how to live a more intentional life.
It's been great exploring these ideas with you, and I really hope our listeners are feeling inspired to embrace their own 4,000 weeks, with a renewed sense of purpose and meaning.
This is a book that I'm going to keep coming back to. It's full of wisdom and insights, and I think we can all learn a lot from it. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the demands of modern life or just looking for a more, I don't know, meaningful approach to time management, I highly recommend checking out 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. And be sure to subscribe to Mighty Habits for more deep dives into fascinating topics that will help you expand your mind and really live your best life. Thanks for listening, everyone.